Oh man, what we are having on Stirring the Pot. This is, let me see, this is interview 5 of 8 that we're having. Today is the first one on a fine Sunday afternoon. This is Stirring the Pot with Don
Yeah.
and my very special guest, Freight Train. What's up, baby?
What's going on, brother? How are you?
You know, we are in a topsy turvy time as the last time we spoke. Nothing really much has changed. What?
No, not really. Yeah, it was April.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been about.
That was the first thing I do want to say though. Uh, I was gonna say something before I hit the record button, but I wanted to save it till after. Uh, Holy fuck, man! Look at your hair. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little bit longer.
Holy shit! So I take it you didn't trim it during the COVID, huh?
No, you know what? I let this grow and grow and grow, and then usually like once every year and a half, I go get it cut and I donate the hair
Oh,
to
nice.
like Lock Spring Labs or something like that. So then it'll get real short, and I let it just flow out again, do it again.
That's awesome, man. Uh, we thank you for doing those things because I used to try to grow my hair long. I was in an '80s band and I thought I had long hair. That's fucking long hair. Look at that. Oh my god.
You know, the funny part is, all through high school, I had the military crew cut
Oh,
because my dad was in the Navy, so he wouldn't let me grow it long, man. As soon as I moved out, that was it. I let it go.
oh man. Uh, well, thank you for spending the time with us on stirring the pot.
Oh, yeah.
Because again, it's been a little while, and we are pretty much right, right where we left off when we last talked, my friend. The
Yeah.
world is still spinning around trying to figure this shit out. Uh, they're shipping out this vaccines. I don't know if that's going to make it any better or any worse. I don't know what the fuck is going on around there. Hopefully, we get to turn it all around. And I know we said this last time, but we want wrestling to come back. So, uh, uh, what have you been doing since we've last spoken? It's been about 6 months or so, my friend.
Oh, gee. Well, I'm working like everybody else, or well, who can work. Because technically I'm essential worker. I work in the food industry, so technically I'm essential. Um, but other than that, I mean, when it first started, we were still doing a little wrestling in Gloucester. We got a little place in by Manchester by the Sea that we practice, do some taping, stuff like that. But that's even been closed down for a little bit with the restrictions, you know. I mean, technically we're a gym and we can have people in, but then you got to go with the 10-person restriction. Everybody's got to wear a mask. And, you know, so a lot of the guys, honestly, you know, they don't want to take the risk because they have kids. They live with, you know, older people and stuff like that. So for the most part, the wrestling's been shut down. We do get some time, like a couple guys will get together, get some ring time in, you know, break off the rust, you know. But other than that, man, it's just praying this thing will get over so we can do some shows.
Mm. So it's evident that your promotion hasn't been promoting anything, hasn't been looking to get anything together because what can you do? I mean, who the hell wants to go to a show like that where I mean, is it really beneficial for anybody to put on a show where there's such a limited amount of people? And I know anybody is any any fans at a show is fantastic, but in the situation we're in, I mean, is it beneficial for anybody if you can only have maybe 25 people or something on an indoor show or something, you know, whatever the case may be? So I
Yeah,
see that your promotion has been on the down low, right?
yeah. I mean, I'm not going because I mean, if I mean, you've talked to promoters, man. It takes a lot of money to put on a show,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to get a lot of people in there just sometimes to break even for the night. So you know, I'm not going to put it. Unfortunately, you can't put your own pocketbook in a bad situation, especially with the way things are now. With people are short on money as it is. You know, there's like, oh, we're going to give everybody $600, and I'm like, yeah, okay, so everybody's going to pay a bill. They're not going to have any extra money. It's just not going to work out.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I worked on the last Newton show that we did in March. I worked with Delilah Hayden, with Derek Conway and Chad Epic. We all put together to put that OCW show on. And I've talked to them here and there. Not lately, because, I mean, everybody's got their thing going on. But hopefully when all this is done, I want to get back with them three and hopefully get back into Newton. I got a couple spots in Gloucester, another spot in Ipswich. I'm going to be, hopefully when this is over, do an outside show. So, yeah, I mean, I'm working on it. I'm trying to line everything up so when this thing is over, we can get right back into the flow of things.
Excellent. For those that don't know what OCW stands for, could you please tell us what the call letters are, please? Stand for, please.
Yeah, OCW is Outlaw Championship Wrestling. I got back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was with a guy who had OWC, which was Outlaw Wrestling Confederation. We split. I wanted to still use the Outlaw moniker because that's just who I am. I'm that kind of guy. And so I just switched the C and the W, changed the words, and there you go.
You guys are based out of the Massachusetts area, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm based out of Gloucester, Mass.
And there's some familiar faces that I've seen previous to the whole COVID. There's some familiar faces that I've seen on your events. And I want to kind of just speak about one right off the ripper, if I may, because it's been a while. And I'd like to give the fans a little bit of feel of what you got going on over there at OCW.
Absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken, is Christina Marie, Courageous Christina Marie. She is on your roster. Is she not the women's champion right now?
She was. At our last show, she actually was defeated for the title by Liz Bay, the Supek Sweetheart. She beat her for the title in an amazing match. That I believe we have that match up on our YouTube channel, which is OCW Outlaw Championship Wrestling on YouTube. We have that match up from that entire card is up. The previous card that we had in September was Sabu. That card is up. So yeah, she was my champion. She won the belt back in 2018 in October in Gloucester, and then she finally lost it this March 2020. So wow. She was a good year and a half with that belt.
Wow. I like long title runs myself because it gives us the fans. A chance to see different sides or different move sets, maybe a little here and there, or just different things of their career. Because a year and a half in wrestling, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like a long time, but a year and a half in wrestling, you can do many different things. And connect with us, the fans, I feel, my personal feeling is a long title run with a champion. We get to see so many different things with a champion. Why a long title run with somebody like Christina?
Well, we did the show, and then we had a couple other shows lined up for her to come back in. Unfortunately, either between her previous engagements with, I think it was PPW and a couple other promotions where she had another title, she couldn't come in and defend it. And I wasn't going to just take the title off her. I figured eventually I would get her back. She could defend the title. We did eventually get her back for that March show. And I spoke to her about, well, we all know the insides of wrestling now because kayfabe's basically dead. I spoke to her because she had so many things going on. And I asked her, I said, hey, do you mind dropping the title to Lysana? And she goes, no, absolutely. I'd love to. I love her. She's great. And I'm like, all right, perfect. Awesome. And they had an amazing match that night. I mean, even Christina, I think like 2 minutes into the match, we think it was the turnbuckle, the actual metal part of the turnbuckle. She sliced her hand open. Like 2 minutes into what was going to be a 15, 20-minute match, that girl looked at it, wiped it off, and did the rest of the match like nothing happened. It was she was amazing.
So I'm assuming, I'll go out on a limb, and I'm assuming that there were a suplex of many in that match between one Isana and one Courageous Christina.
I mean, they're both well-rounded, intelligent, beautiful wrestlers. I mean, they're both amazing. And they just, I mean, it was like the perfect setup for them too. It was strength versus strength, experience versus experience, talent versus talent. It was just an amazing match.
I love how you speak about it because it's that excitement, right, my friend? It's that excitement of the wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even watch the stuff on TV anymore. I don't think I've watched Raw, SmackDown in at least a year and a half.
Okay.
I'll pick up some of the AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan stuff on YouTube or whatever. But I love the indie wrestling. It's like I can't wait for it to come back because I want to start going out every week when I'm not doing anything to go see somebody else's indie show. Not only just to enjoy myself, but I'm thinking, hey, maybe I can find somebody I can bring into OCW.
Absolutely. Now you're speaking of the independent scene and AEW. I'm just gonna stop right there for a minute. Now AEW, they have a thing called AEW Dark. What they do on Tuesday evenings, I want to say around 7 p.m. live on their YouTube channel.
Yep.
Is that something you've ever watched at all yet?
I haven't lately. I've watched a couple episodes a few months back. Because of my work schedule and other shit I got going on, I don't always have the time, obviously. But I'll try to, usually like today, I'll probably after we're done, I'll probably watch a couple hours of wrestling before I go back to my Game of Thrones, something like that,
Nice. The reason why I bring that up, because I'm all about the indie scene. That's why I do this show. That's why I do the promos. That's why I go to the shows, the whole 9 yards. I love the indie scene. But my point being is the AEW Dark, what they've been doing is this transition from when it started was Tony Schiavone hosted the first probably few, maybe half dozen or so. I can't really recall, but it was Tony Schiavone in like 3 or 4 matches with a spotlight on the wrestlers, okay? Now, it's turned into a 2+ hour program with 15 matches of the indie people, the talented men and women we see on the indie scene coming in and going against their roster, and that's how they're kind of testing them, engaging them. They do that a couple matches there. And I'm going to use one person in an example, 2 people because they're a tag team now. One Platinum Max Caster and one Anthony Bowens. They both came in at the AEW Dark, did like 2 matches, maybe 3 matches at the very most on Dark. They're a tag team called The Acclaimed. They are both now legit signed with AEW. So my point being is the men and women that we love to see on the indie scene, AEW is one of those companies that are giving them such a platform to come in, do some work. If they like you, let's see some more. Oh, yeah? I like that some more. We're going to give you a contract. So just like that, my friend, things are happening in these bigger platforms where I think I've spoken before, the WWE was always the pinnacle. Well, it's not the pinnacle like it used to be, and people have many more avenues to utilize now. And here we are with AEW and doing this thing with Dark, and I think it's a phenomenal thing. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I think it's actually great because it's almost like having when back in my day when you had groups like ECW, when it was originally ECW was originally TWA, became Eastern Championship, then Extreme, but that was another situation where no name guys were getting a chance to come in and get on local TV, and then eventually obviously it was pay-per-view and national TV and all that. But my train of thinking is just like what AEW is doing is, and the big guy WWE is never going to do this. They're just not going to bring a bunch of indie guys to face their guys on NXT. They're going to pick the cream of the crop from the independents and make NXT. They're not just going to bring guys that you've never seen. And AEW is doing it completely 100% right. They're bringing in fresh talent from all these different indies and saying, hey, listen, here's something you've never seen before because you live in Minnesota, you don't live in Wisconsin. You know, you live in Mass, you don't live in Pennsylvania. You're never going to see this guy, but we're going to give you the opportunity to see what these people can do. And then, like you said, those two guys getting signed. You know, that's an amazing thing. Would those guys have ever got signed if Dark wasn't there? Maybe, maybe not. It might have been a couple more years down the road before they got signed.
Right.
You know, so I mean, I think whatever Tony Khan's doing over there is friggin' awesome. He's doing a great job.
There's still a toss-up. I do follow these fan type pages. I'm not one of those fans that gets in there with the opinions and says a bunch of hooey. I kind of look through the stuff and I move along. I'm not one of these opinion guys. I could never do that. I just don't feel right doing it anyways. But there is this weird yin and yang of AEW fandom and WWE fandom with a sprinkle of this Impact fandom that's still going on. That is just absolutely mind-altering with fans right now. It really is just off the charts.
Yeah, but see now that it's just like a 20-year later version of the WWF fans versus the WCW fans versus the sprinkle of the ECW fans. You know, it's almost the same thing repeating itself 20 years later. The only difference in this one is if you keep the WWE, now it's AEW, but they're kind of turning the heat up on Vince and company. I mean, they're just getting so much more talent. I mean, the WWE, obviously, they have talented guys or you wouldn't be there. But AEW is just doing things so differently and so much better right now. I mean, I could see in another year or two, especially when this pandemic bull is over and the fans are back in the seats, I think you're going to see AEW outselling WWE. I really do.
Now, on this past episode, obviously there's a Wednesday Night War thing going on. And I don't mean to stay on this topic because this is supposed to be about Freight Train, but I like to pick your brain. I like to pick your brain because you're a promoter. You deal with you deal with the characters regularly, and I don't. So I thank you for letting me pick your brain a little bit. This Wednesday Night War thing that we have going on right now, they tried to revive the Monday Night War. It's not as smoking as it was back then, obviously, with the viewership and the people that watch all on just those two channels because there's so many avenues to watch on the streaming services and you can watch it later or whatever. But my point being is this past Wednesday, they had a tribute to Brody Lee. And I kind of put a thing on my face page, not making fun, but just kind of saying that this week's ratings or tonight's ratings, AEW Dynamite 1.3 billion, NXT 200,000, right? Now I wasn't making, I was kind of making light, but not of the Brody Lee situation. So now that that's come and gone, this past Wednesday, the numbers are in. On my post, one JJ Alexander said, "I bet you that AEW doesn't break 1 million viewers." He was correct. They were just shy of breaking 1 million viewers. They've always been in that 7, 8, maybe 900,000 couple times in that bracket, where NXT has been in the 5, 6, 7, and kind of doing that little scale. So this week it's kind of jostled a little bit because you could see if you follow the wrestlers' Twitters, being WWE guys and other, wrestlers, a lot of people were, a lot of the workers, if you will, were watching the AEW Dynamite just for, that whole tribute because they said they were going to bring something really cool to the table. I watched the whole thing. I don't know if you watched it, but it was a cool show. I did choose that over NXT this week. So my point being is numbers get jostled, but mostly they're kind of right about here, if you will. So they kind of spread a little bit. But we're talking not even 1 million viewers, my friend, nowadays to watching a major professional wrestling product. That kind of disheartens me. It really does.
Yeah, I think what's happening, I think it's just a progression of what's happened since I mean, the Attitude Era, let's say. I mean, that's when wrestling completely peaked. I mean, when you had the Stone Colds, the Rocks, the D-Generation X, and all, you had Mick Foley coming out as three different things. I mean, you got Mankind winning the belt on Monday Night Raw, stuff like that. It was just a time that it was my generation that grew up watching the Hulk Hogan's and all the stupid characters, and that went into this much more vicious form of wrestling because they all wanted to compete with what ECW was doing because they saw that was drawing numbers. Now I think my generation was so set on the physicality of the wrestling, and now I think, I mean, AEW is starting to go back to the physicality, but with WWE it was so much just storytelling. It was like a male soap opera. It just and a lot of people got away from it. They didn't watch it, so their kids weren't watching it. And I think you lost a generation of viewership because of the downturn to go into the PG era. And now it's just going to take a lot of time to get that viewership back to the level it was, where older people like me are going, oh shit, let me watch some AEW. Let's see what the hell's going on. And then, my kid who's, in his early 20s now, that's what he watches. He watches the AEW stuff like that, because it's like, I don't know. I just think that wrestling in general it's always had a stigma to it. Like it was carnival,
Mhm.
and when they went from a real violent era to a really just toned down era, I think they lost a ton of viewership and they're not going to really get it back.
Yeah, going from the Attitude to the PG era was pretty detrimental over the
Yeah.
course of the past some odd years. I will have to give you that one. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I
Not,
think, I think AEW now, I mean, if you watch a lot of their stuff, there's not a lot of talking. The promos that they do are really well done. And you can tell that the wrestlers are doing the promo, not some backstage writer.
right,
So the promos are much better because the
right.
promos are coming out from the wrestlers' inside, from their heart, and saying, "Hey, this is what I'm going to say. I'm just going to say it." And for guys like like Chris Jericho, that's the way he should be. He can't have a writer. Jericho is way too intelligent and way too smart to be having some writer telling him what to say in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
He could crowd. He could work a crowd with a broomstick in the match and have the greatest promo in the world against a broomstick.
Yeah. Very well said, because that's why a lot of these guys and girls were jumping ship or wanted to jump ship, because you get a piece of paper that tells you exactly what to say. You memorize that. You've got about maybe 30 to 120 seconds to memorize this thing. Get this thing down real quick because you're going to be on. And then you get in front of a camera and kind of play this thing out. And it's like, these guys don't want to do this shit. They want, like you're saying, they want to do what they want to do. Jon Moxley coming in and being Jon Moxley. We were waiting for that for a while because we knew if you followed Jon Moxley from the CCW days, and then he becomes Dean Ambrose, we're like, okay, he's kinda, but he's not really Jon Moxley, So when he jumped ship, went to AEW, he did what he wanted to do, and here we are, Jon Moxley, number one in the PWI out of the PWI 500, number one this past year.
Yeah, and he probably never would have had that as Dean Ambrose. I guarantee he would have never been number one as Dean Ambrose. It wouldn't have happened. And it's like, even on a smaller scale, when I do a show, I don't tell the people what to say. Like if I have 2 or 3 guys that do the promo, I'm like, listen, you know who you're wrestling. You know what you want to say. Just go out and say it. And I do the same with their matches. I'm like, listen, this is who's winning. You guys figure out to get there. I'm not going to tell you what moves to do, how to do it, when to do it. Listen, here's your time. This is, finish it up at this time. This is who I want over. You guys figure it out. In the 4 or 5 shows that I've done up here, I've gotten almost 100% positive feedback from the guys that were working for me on that show, because they got to do what they wanted to do and not have someone down their throat trying to feed them my vision. Right. My vision of OCW is just putting on a good show. And if putting on a good show means letting the wrestlers have the match that they want to have, then so be it. I'm not on national TV. I don't have to worry about something going wrong. If it goes wrong, most of the guys that I have that have wrestled for me, if a mistake happens, they know how to fix it on the fly. They know what they're doing.
Exactly. Exactly. Uh, Staying with this theme, national TV, we were talking attitude to PG transition. Now, that wasn't due to the company WWE. That was due to the network saying,
Yeah.
you guys are being too racy. Now,
Yep.
here we are, full effing circle, 2020. USA is so effing pissed. Fox is so effing pissed at these viewership numbers. Now they're telling these guys, you need to jump it up a little bit more. We're sick of this PG stuff. You need it to be a little bit more adult orientated. What are we like? Maybe like 20 years later, 15 years later, that they had to get rid of all of the racy stuff to make it more family orientated. And now they don't want it like that no more. I am so damn confused.
Yeah, I think it's what it was. Is they realized they lost our generation of fans. You know, we were more like the violence. You know, like the ECW that mostly transitioned into WWF at the time, and then WCW tried to do the same thing with their stuff when they brought ECW guys in. Like I said before, you lost a lot of viewership because guys like me who just want to see a couple guys beat the living hell out of each other are now, dancing around and talking for 20 minutes before they throw the first punch. And it's like, I don't want to see that. I want to see two guys get in the ring, beat the living hell out of each other. Hopefully the guy I like wins. If not, so what? They'll be next week. It's just, you don't see that anymore. And now those TV stations that told them to stop doing it realize, oh shit, we've made a mistake. Well, we got to find something to get the ratings back up because we're losing all these people. Well, how do you do that with wrestling? You got to be, wrestling is always in the entire history of wrestling has been controversial, no matter what, whether it's the actual content, whether it's the steroid issues, whether it's, back in the day when people thought wrestling was real. And back in the day with my father, when my father watched wrestling, which some of those guys did it for real, the Killer Kowalskis, the Brunos, the Haystack Calhouns, those guys that would really, if you pissed them off in the ring, would beat the hell out of you for doing something stupid. Yep. That's not there no more. Now it's all a choreographed dance. And I don't like that. It's like, they made it too technical. They made it way too technical. And like Randy Orton, when Randy Orton came out talking about all the flippy flop shit, I'm like, you know what? Well, there's a place for that. It was just like in ECW, it was all hardcore, but there was a place for the luchas. There was a place for the Eddie Guerreros, the Dean Malenkos, the Chris Benoits to have their technical matches. And I think that's kind of what it has to go back in. Like Paul Heyman said, it's a 3-ring circus. If you don't like the violence, you'll like the Mexican luchas. If you don't like the luchas, you're going to like the technical wrestling. I think they need more of a mix in that because if you watch WWE stuff now, unless you have like a Ricochet or somebody like that in the ring, it's all the same stuff. It's move, 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 move. They go by this specific formula, and it's starting to get old.
Now, getting to OCW, do you have an array? An eclectic bunch of characters to where the fans get to see maybe some lucha, some traditional, maybe some hardcore stuff. I mean, how is OCW built?
Yeah, I mean, like when we did our show last September when I had Sabu in, I was in a match. I faced Sabu in a tables match. It turned into a tag team tables match where me and Sabu wound up teaming up against somebody else. So we had the hardcore, we had the tables match. We also had downright just technical matches like Isana and Christina were just straight on technical strength matches. We have almost comedic matches because, I bring Dick Lane in because Dick Lane is fantastic. I'm sorry. I mean, I love Dick Lane and I know people like to crap on his gimmick with the Force stuff and all that, but I'm sorry. In a match with Dick Lane, there is not an ass that isn't watching that match. Everybody's eyes are glued to a Dick Lane match, and that's just the way it is. So, I mean, I try stuff like that in, and then I try to I bring in, guys that I've worked with up that were in Manchester, now they're in Gloucester with WAW, guys that weren't, well, what they call them backyarders, but I call them people that love professional wrestling. I don't like to use the term, oh, they were backyarders. So what? I don't care who you ask. Every wrestler's always wrestled in the backyard. And if they tell you they never wrestled in the backyard, they're lying. Because where else would you get your start in professional wrestling without your friends in the backyard with your mother screaming at you to knock your shit off? That's just what it is. Now, a lot of those guys in WAW they would go to seminars. They would do whatever they could to better themselves, and people would shit on them. And I'm like, no, I had 3 of them in an opening match at my show, and the crowd was literally standing on their feet at the end of the match. 150 people for 3 people that were supposedly never trained got that crowd in such an uproar. That crowd didn't stop chanting for the rest of the night because of those 3.
That's awesome. Mr. Freight Train, you putting over the talent like you have just in that segment right there is heartwarming for me as a fan. And especially because you're talking about some familiar faces I know. And I'm going to pick one of them out, being Dick Lane. Insane Dick Lane. Insane Dick Lane is a character in his own right. He's absolutely an original. He'll never be duplicated. There is no effing way that anybody could come close to doing what he's done in the course up to now and even beyond of his career. I really enjoy that Dick Lane is all in, period. He's not half-assing any of what he's putting in to his character and his craft and what he does. Because, when you say Dick Lane, you think of a gimmicky match, okay? That's usually the first thing that comes to mind because he's a superhuman, super meta-human villain, all right?
Yes.
So I mean, that's what kind of is the first thing that comes to mind. But if you watch Dick Lane, don't listen to the name. Don't listen to the gimmick shit. If you watch Dick Lane in that ring, my man can go. He is fantastic in the ring.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love his ring work, and I've seen the matches where he didn't use any of the gimmick stuff. And he's just as good with or without it. If it doesn't, like, I think he was on Leo Connor's show and he was talking about how some promoters didn't want him doing the gimmick stuff. I had him. I'm like, dude, do whatever you want. Whatever you know is going to get this crowd going. Just do it. Yeah. I'm like, just you be you, And the thing with Dick is outside the ring. I mean, the kid's got a heart of gold. He's one of the best human beings I know. I mean, this is the kind of guy that, he'll come to, let's say we did a WAW taping and we just taped for YouTube, and he'll come in and he'll notice somebody that's not quite there yet. He doesn't even have to be asked. He comes in and just helps people, and he's one of the guys that just wants to make sure that when he's done, he helped enough people so that they can help people so they can help people. I mean, he's a good dude.
That kind of reminds me of when I interviewed Ryan Frost. He said, I just want to leave the industry better. That's it. That's my only goal, is to leave the industry better. If I can help, I'm going to help without fault. So that again, beautiful to hear. Thank you for sharing stuff like that with us.
Absolutely, man.
Because again, sometimes fans or promoters have one perception of said character, but they don't know the guy behind the character, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, do like if Delilah or Derek or Chad say, hey, I want to bring this person in, and if I don't know them, usually I'll just take their word for it. If they think they're decent, all right, cool, let's bring them in. If I'm not quite sure, I'll YouTube them and try to watch some of their matches to try to figure out what they do, how they do it, where, that's like one of the reasons I've had Dirtbag Dan on a couple of my shows. And I friggin' love the dude because he will come out and he can play. He can be the nastiest hardcore wrestler you want on your card. But then he came in and wrestled Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon on my. He wrestled him on my, I believe it was my March show. Might have been my September show. I can't remember which one. And they had like the greatest technical, non-violent match there was. Those guys had the crowd on their feet. It was amazing.
You named two characters right there, boy. Dirtbag Dan and Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon, right? Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon, right?
Yeah, Cinnamon, yeah.
I get so confused, man. I always say it out of order. Man, those names you guys are. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Their names are just getting longer and longer. It's like, come on, dude, break down a little bit.
Those two guys, wow, characters and a half, if you will. Just had Dirtbag Dan this past week on Stirring the Pot. Wow, that dude is just. Oh, that guy is something else, man. Right now, boys and girls, I want to let you know, I did put it on his face page. My man Dirtbag Dan, his filth got the best of him, and he is now doing a stint in Facebook jail. So for anybody that's watching this, and if you know Dirtbag Dan, even if you don't know Dirtbag Dan, go throw him some stinky love on his page. Danny Pettit Jr. Go to his page, give him some stinky love, bust his balls about being in Facebook jail. He'll love you forever. Please do that.
I'm definitely going to throw him some shade on that one. That's going to be.
Oh man. So when you're looking to get a show together, how do you get your talent? How do you get your talent together? Is it word by mouth? Is it, I know these people, I'm going to see if they're available. How do you get your shows together, sir?
Well, usually what I do is I figure we have three titles. We have the women's title, the heavyweight title, and we have the New England States title. So what I do is I figure out those champs who I want to put them against. I figure, okay, I can figure out those three matches. And then, like I said, with Delilah, Derek, and Chad, we'll try to fill out the card the rest of the way. We all have ideas of who we want to put on the card. Like the last one, we just got together for a couple hours at Delilah's house. We all threw names down. We said, okay, this one. And probably within an hour and a half, 2 hours, we had a full card.
Nice.
So, it's all, and it's all guys that we know. It's all wrestlers we know personally, Mm-hmm. The few exceptions were when I first seeked out Christina Marie, because I saw a lot of her stuff on YouTube and I wanted her to be the first champ. Nice. I brought in Robbie E on my first Gloucester show, which was kind of a good idea. Not really. And then like the Newton show we did in September, I wanted Sabu. That was on my bucket list. So I told them, and that show wasn't really an it was kind of an OCW show plus Delilah's show. It was kind of a half and half. Okay. And I said, listen, I'll go in with you, but I'm bringing Sabu in. We'll make the Sabu and me the main event, and then whatever else you want to do, but I'll bring Sabu in to get people in the door. And Delilah, being who she is, she wanted to help pay for bringing Sabu in and paying me back. And I'm like, no, I said, this is my bucket list. I'm paying for Sabu. And at the end, no shit, at the end with Sabu and Super Genie, at the end, it cost me $3,000 to have them there. Wow. But everybody was like, dude, are you crazy? I'm like, no, it's a bucket list. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to be able to say I was in the ring with freaking Sabu. Don't care.
And not only that, because it started off as a singles and turned into a tag team.
Yeah. So what happened was there was a tag team in WDW called the Hellraisers, which was Dave Destro and Michael McManus, and I'm good friends with them. And I wanted to give somebody else a rub that night. Two guys that might not have the chance to be in the ring with basically a wrestling legend. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to go 15, 20 minutes with Sabu. I just don't think I have it in me. So I came up with the idea saying, hey, we'll start it as a singles, turn it into a tag, and then you guys get a chance to be in the ring with Sabu. So that's
Wow.
how that.
Your bucket list turned into a special moment for some of the other talent.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And it was like, and Sabu was the nicest guy. It was crazy because
Really?
he's sitting in, yeah, he was in the locker room like everybody else. And someone would come over to him. He'd stand up and, they'd introduce, he'd shake their hands. He'd ask about their character. He'd ask, how long they've been wrestling.
Really?
I mean, he was really into the boys in the back. So
wow.
he was like just one of us. It was really cool.
That is so awesome to hear, man. That is really, really cool to hear. Now you've mentioned 3 of the titles that you have in OCW. Could
Yep.
you please repeat the name of the title and give us who's the current champion of each of your titles right now?
So the New England States title is currently held by a wrestler named Stan Marino, who was a WAW guy.
Okay.
Because of the COVID and all that stuff, he lives up in Maine or New Hampshire, so he can't come into Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, we're not doing any shows anyway. The women's title right now is currently vacant.
Okay, 1 second before we move to that.
Yeah.
Why the name of that championship? How did that come about?
I wanted something local, so
Okay.
I wanted like a local title. I know a couple guys that promote also. They're like, you don't want to really have a local title because in case this move. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ever moving out of New England. I don't have delusions of grandeur of being like the next ECW. If it were fine, I don't have a problem with that. But I know I'm probably always going to be a local promotion, so let's have a local title. Then that's
Cool.
how it came about.
Oh, awesome. I didn't mean to cut you off. On to the next title.
So the next title was the women's title, and that is currently vacant. Isana was our last champ, and basically because you know how social media is, me and Isana got into a tiff on social media, and
Okay.
I said, you know what? You're not going to have the belt. Screw this. I'm tired. I'm done with the BS. That started a whole nother ball thing rolling. But the end result was that me and Isana actually texted back and forth, talked it out, blah, blah, blah. She wasn't too worried about having the title reinstated. So I said, all right, we'll just leave it vacant for now. And hopefully eventually we can work together again down the road. So then we have the OCW heavyweight title, which is currently held by Caleb Manson, who is actually my son. So this is, everybody gives me a rib for putting the belt on my kid, but I turned around and I said, well, at the time, he deserved it. He's been paying his dues for 2.5 years. He's been wrestling really well. And we had, I believe it was it was the March show that he beat, who did he beat? Wow, I can't believe the guy's name's escaping my mind. See, this is what happens when you get older. So he won the title at our March show, and he's had that title since. Obviously, since we haven't done any shows since then, but yeah, he's been holding it since then.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that information because we'd like to know the champions of said promotions. I appreciate that. One quick ultra second, please, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
There we go. See, ultra quick. So OCW, once we kind of can do something, and I know during the summer, there was some outdoor shows throughout some states across the United States and even beyond. There was some outdoor shows being done, limited capacity and such. And then the weather changed and there was an uptick. So everything pretty much just shut right back down. Now with OCW specifically, let's just say hypothetically, the virus numbers start kind of stopping here and things start changing a little bit. the seasons start changing, spring is coming. There's going to be, from right now, there's actually companies that are putting out dates for spring, summer, and such into next year. Are you looking, OCW, are you looking to get some dates and do some possible outdoor venues or something like that? Just, to do your thing once we can possibly do something?
Yeah, I'm not too keen on trying to get spring dates only because who the hell knows what's going to happen by April, May. I am looking to try to do at least one outdoor show, if not two, in the summer. I have one place that I'm working on now and another place I got to look into. Because I figure if there's still a little bit of issues with the COVID, we can do the outdoor stuff,
Yeah.
And then I'm just hoping that it's all cleared up by September so I can hopefully get back into Newton and do a show in Newton.
Okay.
Because this was the first year in, I want to say 8 years that there hasn't been a wrestling show at Newton in September, either by myself or by Delilah, because they've been working Newton for a while. So that's the main one. That's the one I want to get in, because every time we get there, we pack the place with 200 people. So, it's always a great show at Newton. The people around Newton that come to see us are fantastic.
It's nice when you can find a venue where the people support and appreciate what you're presenting, Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the Newton's got a good fan base. And then between all the people that help me with OCW, we know enough people that we get the right wrestlers in. They bring people. Like I can't remember the gentleman's name that wrestled for us on my last show. But he wrestled against Dick Lane, but he brought in 20 people. He sold 20 tickets, We didn't ask him to, he just did, So it's that's the best part about having a lot of the indie wrestlers we have, because they bring friends and family that want to come see him wrestle, and they all buy a ticket, so it's great.
I know we've talked about this previously in our last sit down. I correlate music and wrestling, very similar industries, if you will. When it comes to music, and I don't know if it's the same with wrestling, since we're on this topic, you can only invite your friends and family so many times until they just stop fucking coming, because I've been in that boat, my friend, where you're hot, you're not so hot, and then things kind of taper down a little bit, but your friends and family can only go to so many of your shows, so to get them to come and still see what you're doing, it's fantastic. The performers, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's luckily, like I said, in Newton, there's almost like a regular fan base for our Newton show. I mean, it does help that we do promote the hell out of that show. I mean, we go everywhere putting signs up. Like, it's in Newton, Mass. I was putting signs up in Ipswich, which is, a good 40-minute ride, and we got fans from Ipswich to come in.
Nice.
We got fans from Gloucester to come in. We got fans from everywhere to come in. So it was funny on that last show, because at like 7:15, the show was starting at 7:30. At 7:15, there was like 35, 40 people. And I'm like, great, I'm going to lose my shirt on this one. I'm like, I'm done. I went out to the truck. I sat down. I had a couple cigarettes, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go up. We're still going to put the best show possible on. I go back up. The place was packed. There was 200 people in there. I'm like, I don't know where the hell they all came last minute. And I'm like, I should have known better. It's wrestling fans. They're going to come last minute. I should have known.
Well, in our defense, my friend, when it says doors open at X, usually X is not X. There's wrestling time. And you know that as well as I do, my friend. There's wrestling time. And I kind of poke at Mr. One Slick Wagner Brown about wrestling time, if you will. I like to mess with him about it. So, yeah, I have noticed that, though. Fans do like to come. It's either flip-flop, though. You either get the ones that want to see, if you have the talent that are out there selling their merch, maybe a half hour or an hour before the show starts. They want to be there to check that out. Or
Yep.
you're going to get everybody, like you said, at the very last moment that are
Yeah.
just filing in.
I think wrestling fans are smart enough to know that bell time is not the actual start of the wrestling show. It just never is. You can put bell time, like our bell time was 7:30. We started at like 7:45. It's just the way the wrestling business is. It never starts on time, ever.
We call that wrestling.
It's all the wrestling gimmick.
I know we've spoken about this on our previous one, but I kind of just want to revisit this question before I do let you go. Freight Train is part of this promotion, OCW. Freight Train has also been active as of not too long ago against one Sabu and such. What do you got left in the tank, my man, as an active wrestler?
I've probably already retired 5 times. I'm doing the Terry Funk Ric Flair retirement party.
Hey, Kiss has been on the farewell tour since 1999. I was there. I was at the first one.
Yeah. I was at the last Kiss concert I was at was when they came back and first put the makeup back on, when they brought Peter and Ace back.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you've been going out since then. It's like no, like I said, we when the COVID numbers were dropping in the summer and they were letting things open back up again, we opened the gym up and we did some YouTube tapings then.
Okay.
We were allowed to, so I got back in the ring and did a few matches.
Oh, nice.
So I think, I don't know. I want to say I want to retire, but I don't think I'm going to ever like really retire, like never, because it could be 5 years from now. One of my buddies from WAW or somewhere else could call up and say, hey, do you want to come in and do a battle royal? And I'll be like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll be right there. It's gonna happen. I just don't think once you're in this business, you never get it out of you. It's always going to be there no matter what you do. And I think until I physically am unable to throw my leg over the rope and get into a ring, until then, I'll probably it might not be often, but I'll probably still be wrestling.
You've mentioned these TV tapings a couple times. Is there any way that we could see this stuff?
I think right now we have it blocked as private. The reason for that was when we were doing the tapings and we were legally allowed to still be open with, we were allowed to have 20 people or 25, whatever it was. We got a letter from the township of Gloucester telling us to knock our shit off, basically. So we went to Gloucester and talked to them and blah, blah, blah. Told them we were all doing what we're supposed to do by the governor's standards. And they wanted us to cut it down to so many people because it's such a small space. So we basically just didn't shut the doors, but we basically closed it down to doing tapings and just using it to, if guys wanted to come down, bust off the ring rust, get in the ring, just practice a little bit, 3 or 4 guys at a time.
Okay.
So basically what we want to do is until the governor starts lifting more of the ban, we don't want to put any of the tapings out because they're going to say, oh, you did that last week when the ban was on. And we're going to be like, no, and we just don't want the fight. We know when we did it. We know we were doing it legally and being within coordinates of the rules. But we just don't want to have that fight. So when the things are a little lax, when things lax up, then we're just going to, everything we have taped, we're going to put it all out at once.
I totally got you there, my man.
Which I'd like to, because one of the matches I went through a flaming table, so I would like to put it out,
Just unblock it so Don Kincaid can see it, and I want to watch that. Okay, just unblock it.
I'll see if I can. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
uh, you say flaming table. I got to see this shit, my man. I mean, come on. You can't say flaming table like that.
Especially when it's my own kid putting me through the table.
Oh, sounds like a family fun time. Freight Train. This has been not only a fantastic follow-up, but a fantastic, I don't know, just like two friends hanging out talking wrestling. I really, really appreciate you coming in, sitting down, being open, talking OCW, talking Freight Train, just talking general wrestling. This hour has been fantastic, and I can't appreciate it enough, sir.
Yeah, thank you, man. I mean, I appreciate coming on this because, honestly, I want to say so everybody knows, I love what you're doing. There's two guys that are doing this. It's you and Leo Connors that are just doing an amazing job with just all the indie guys getting us out there. What you guys do helps us because in the long run, more people are going to see what you guys are doing, showing us that, basically showing the human side of all our wrestlers. We're not a bunch of just grunts in a ring. You know what I mean? So I want to you for what you do, man. It's been an honor being on this. It's awesome.
I thank you so much for those kind words and being put in the same sentence with Mr. Leo Connors. That guy's been around. I'm just a little tiny baby in this scene. And Leo Connors has been around in this game for quite some time. So to be put in the same sentence, I'm honored, and I thank you for those kind words, my friend.
Well, they're welcome. You deserve them, believe me.
This has been a fine start on a Sunday. We've got a couple more on tap, and I took a break for a little while. Sometimes you need a little refresher, but we're back on the Freight Train. This is Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid and my very special guest, Freight Train. Thank you so much, my man.
Brother,